Okay, everybody, big moment here. We're ready to go live with our API project. What I'm looking at right now is app.js, and I just want to make sure that everybody's got this bit of code in app.js. Now you can put this in the middleware section somewhere, like you can see anywhere where all the middleware stuff is going. And I think I gave you this code in class, so hopefully you have it. It's in Blackboard, but you want to put that in your app.js file before any of your routes. So let me just explain real quick what this does if I haven't already done so in class. So this bit of code is only going to run when we're running in the production environment. So you can see that it's checking the env variable to make sure that we're in the production environment. Okay, and then the rest of the code that's inside this if statement, what it's going to do is if somebody tries to make a request to your API using HTTP, it's going to go ahead and just redirect that request to HTTPS. Okay, it's really important on our production environment that we're using HTTPS. Hopefully you know by now that HTTPS encrypts all of the requests and responses that go back and forth between the client and the server, and so that if anybody intercepted some of those HTTP messages, they wouldn't be able to read them because they'd be encrypted. If we were using HTTP, then somebody who intercepted those messages could see things like the password when a user logs in, and any other sensitive data that's being sent back and forth. So it's important to have this bit of code in your app.js file. Make sure you put that in place and then save it, save your app.js, and then we're ready to move on here. Okay, the next thing you want to do is log into cPanel. So here I am at the cPanel dashboard, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a subdomain for our API, and we did that once in the Web 2 class, and we'll do it again here. So here in the cPanel dashboard, you want to scroll down to the domains section right here and click on domains right here. Now I've got quite a few subdomains, so you can just ignore those. I have a bunch of them, but we're going to create a new subdomain for our API. So go ahead and click create a new domain. And now what we can call this is, we'll just call it API dot whatever your domain name is from there. So right here in this text box, type in API dot and then your domain name. So mine is wtc-web.com. Okay, so yours obviously is going to be different, but that's what our subdomain is going to be called. It's going to be called API dot whatever your domain name is. Okay, go ahead and type that in, and then you can hit submit here, and it can take a minute or two to set up the domain. Okay, it looks like it was successful, and here's my new domain, api.mydomainname.com. Okay, and that's going to be the URL that we go to get to our API. All right, so the next step is to go back to the tools page, our dashboard here. And then we want to scroll on down to the section on, I think it's the software section. Yeah, here it is, the software section. And we want to set up a Node.js app. So you want to click on this link right here. Now I've got quite a few Node apps already set up here. You'll probably have just one from the Web 2 class, so I've got a bunch of them. But go ahead and click the Create Application button right here. And here you can pick your Node version. We can leave it at version 20. Are there any other options? Okay, we can just go with 20. I know that works, but you can pick a later version if you want. Let's just stick with 20 right now. Okay, here's where we can set the mode that the app runs in. And remember, our production env file sets this to production, so we want to set this to production. It's gonna run the app in production mode. And then for the application root, this is going to be the folder where all of our code goes. So let's call this API final project. Okay, so, and I'll show you where this folder gets created, but this is where we have to upload our code to. Okay, here we want to set the URL for this Node app, and that's going to be the subdomain that we just created. So pick your API dot your domain name, and that's going to be the domain name that we use here. Okay, now for the startup file, our startup file is server.js, and it's in the source directory. So what we want to do, our path is going to be ./src/ and then server.js. Okay, and then finally this passenger log is, now this is going to be, if you ever do if you have console logs in your Node app, it's going to write to this passenger log here. So I think this is a good thing for us to do. I think what we want to do here is we want to set this up. Let's make sure the passenger log ends up in this same folder right here. So go ahead and do API-project. I'm sorry, API-final-project. Okay, so that just means that it's going to write that log file into the same place where our code is, which is kind of convenient. Okay, so those are the settings we want to have in place here. Now here I was telling you that there's a safer way to pass environment variables in here, and this is how you can do it. So now I think most of you just put your environment variables right in the env file, and ideally you wouldn't put any sensitive data in there, but here you can add environment variables. So maybe we'll do this together in class. Just yeah, I don't know if we want to get into this right now, but this is where you can set environment variables. So for example, we could make one called db_password, and then here we could set it to the password for our database. That way you wouldn't have to put the password in your env file. So that's how you can keep your passwords out of your GitHub repository. You just set them right here. I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and just use the env files, even though it's not best practice. So I'm just going to cancel that. But that's how you could pass in your environment variables, and the sensitive ones, and keep them out of your repository. Okay, I think we're ready to create this, so I'm going to hit the create button. It's going to take a minute. Okay, it looks like it was created, and now what it does is it creates this folder, and I'll show you where to find that in just a second, and it puts just some starter Node app into it. So I should be able to open up a new browser tab right now and go to that domain name, that subdomain, API dot, in my case, my domain name is this. You type in your own domain name. Let's see what happens here. There we go. So here's just the starter Node app that it put in the folder where we need to move our source code to. So if you're seeing that, that's a good sign. It looks like it's working, and it's showing us what version of Node it's running on. Okay, the next thing you need to do is to connect to your server with FileZilla. Now I'm actually not using FileZilla here. I'm experimenting with a different FTP client. It's called WinSCP, but it looks a lot like FileZilla. So make sure you get to your Web4 final project files here on the left. That's your computer. That's your local computer. And then on the right, when you log in and connect to your server, it's going to put you in your home directory here. So look, I can see this path says home, and then my user ID is WTC Web C2. That's my cPanel user ID. So that's the folder that I'm in. And I want to show you, in the previous step, we said we were going to make this folder our application root. So when we created our Node app, it created this folder right here. So that's going to be in your home directory. So it's going to be in the directory that has your cPanel user ID right there. So if I double click on that, here are the starter files that got put in place for us. We need to replace these with our code here. So here's our code right here, and now I don't need to move a lot over there. Here's what I need to do. I need to take the source folder, so I'm going to click on that. I need our .env file, because that's got our env variables in it. And then I think I just need the package.json. Okay, so I held down the control key and clicked each one of those. Those are the only files that we need to move to production. All the other stuff is just related to development. You don't need the node modules folder because I'll show you how we can install the node modules in just a second right here. So go ahead and upload those files to your API final project folder on your live server. I'm just going to drag and drop them over here. And then it's asking me if I want to replace the one that's already there. I'll go ahead and say yes to all of them here. So this WinSCP is a lot like FileZilla. It looks real similar. Okay, so now our files are up on the server, and I'll show you how to install the node modules. So back here, if I go back to my app, let's just go ahead and stop the app. So I'm going to hit stop app here. And then since we uploaded the package.json file, it can look inside that file to see what modules it needs to install. So I can click this button. Why can't I click this button right here? I might need to refresh. I think I need to refresh this page. It's loading up here. Okay, so now it should have detected that there's a package.json file in the application folder, so I can go ahead and click this button now. Okay, it's going to take a bit, so this could take a while, a few minutes, so I'm just going to go ahead and pause the video. Okay, that took about a minute or so, but I did see a green success sign show up here that said that all the modules got installed. So at that point, I'm going to go ahead and start my app again. And hopefully, if we have everything set up properly, if all of our environment variables are set up properly, and if we copied all the code over properly, I should be able to try this out in the browser here. So I'm going to open up a new tab here, and I'm going to go to my my subdomain, api.wtcweb.com. Okay, and now let's see what happens here. Okay, I get a hello world message. Now, is that what we're supposed to get? Yeah, that's what we're supposed to get. So I was thinking that you'd have to log in before you could get to this route, but we're not enforcing authentication for the home route. So if you see that, that's a great sign. It looks like everything's working so far. And then I guess the next step would be to try it out in Postman and log in. Remember, most of our routes are protected, so you can't log in. I guess it depends on how you set up your final project. But if you see this, that's a really good sign. And then when we get together in class, we can start testing this out with Postman. All right, so good job if you made it this far. Now, if you're not seeing this or something doesn't seem to be working right, there's a couple things you can do to try and troubleshoot this. First of all, if I go back over to, let me see, I'm going to go to the cPanel, and I'm just going to do this in File Manager, but let's go to the tools here, and I'm going to scroll down to the File Manager, and here it puts me right in my home folder right here, so I should see there's my API Final Project folder. I'll double click on that. Now, I'm not seeing our passenger log, and there could be a reason for that. Anyways, if you get an error, you might see a passenger log file. I believe we configured it to end up in here, and that would put any console logs into that file. The other thing that you can do is I think we set up logging too, so we should have an access log and an error log. So as long as your code didn't crash before it hit the log stuff, you might have something in there. It looks like my error log has 0 bytes, so that means it's empty. I didn't have any errors, but my access log, I can see that it's got some data in it, and that's probably for the request that we just did to test it out. So if things aren't working, you can check for log files to see if there's any issues. Or you can just wait till class and we can try and troubleshoot it in class. Okay, that's going to do it for this video.